Thanks. I work for the Commonwealth of Learning in Vancouver, which works in turn with the 54 Commonwealth countries spread across the globe. Our work is primarily with the developing nations of the Commonwealth. And so we're often working in Africa, the islands of the Indian Ocean, the islands of the South Pacific, and in other regions in South Asia. So part of the experience I bring to this today too is also some work that I did as executive director of BC Campus, a provincial organization in British Columbia, Canada, that works with a network of 25 universities and colleges. And then after that, with 45 universities and colleges in Ontario, Canada's largest province, where we have almost 1 million students in higher education. I didn't want us to lose sight of the fact that a lot of what we do in open education is really tied to providing education in an accessible way for everyone. And in that way, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, was very clear in that post-war setting that, hey, we have to do a better job of educating everyone. And so I wanted you to keep in mind that the origins of open thinking are really about access, equity, and what many of us got into education to do, and that is to share knowledge. This is a slide that actually David Wiley used, I would say, 10 years ago, and it is still relevant today. And it is about assumptions about openness, about granting freedoms instead of imposing restrictions, sharing knowledge, and setting the conditions where communities of practice can actively collaborate in ways that benefit all of the humans they contact. It's really important to keep in mind that open education has market appeal. It really has market appeal to giving students reduced costs while being part of their higher education program, and improving their learning by removing barriers to resources. And it's really about faculty empowerment, giving more control to them to exercise instructional strategies in ways that make sense for their students. It's really interesting. In British Columbia, it really took off quickly, and primarily at the University of British Columbia, one of the largest research universities in Canada, like top 10 in the world. When the physics department decided to adopt open textbooks for its students and saved them 90,000 Canadian dollars the first year. And the math department said, I think we can do better. And so in the next year, the math department decided we're going to save students more money, and they saved students $1 million the next year. And then soon thereafter, almost every UBC math textbook was available online for free. And so the point I used to make to my colleagues in Ontario at big universities like Toronto and McMaster is that the University of British Columbia can do this, anyone can do it. And it really benefits students. And it really puts faculty in the position of building resources alongside what students require. And in any case, most faculty members are the authors of the textbooks we usually use in classrooms. My colleagues at Kwantlen Polytechnic University built on an idea that emerged in the East Coast of the United States, and that was the zero textbook cost program. So looking at business programs and other programs where they could reduce the cost of a specific program and really market that to students in ways that also made the institution more competitive amongst its peers. Now they've launched their first zero textbook cost degree. And so it's taken it one step further. And so incrementally improving is one way to get past the notion of why does this matter? How could we do it? How does it work in an institutional setting? And in fact, it's gone way past improvement towards transformation in thinking about how we deal with resources. institutions are really about the experience that students have that stem from great teaching and a great environment that is engaging and builds knowledge in a community of practice. The other part of the issue for making open education work in universities and colleges is that you really have to look at infrastructure and build supporting structures that have the path to growth for open practices. And really, the Creative Commons license that looked at copyright, hacked it in such a way that permissions could be granted on top of rights, really opened the door for people to think about a simple, standardized way to grant permissions to your creative work. One of the biggest challenges I had when I used to work in a library was dealing with the permissions that faculty needed for their courses to make copies of sections of books or whole units of study, and coming up with a simple standardized way that obviates that need, gets beyond it in a way that the copyright and the permissions are clearly communicated through a little licensing bug that's associated with the materials, means that you have a self-evident way of knowing the permissions you can benefit from to use the materials with your students. I really like the Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resource Coalition's definition because it goes well beyond materials to tools and practices that are free of legal and financial and technical barriers. And it's really about the affordances of malleable materials that are brought about by working in a digital environment. And it's really critical that we keep that in mind. And even on the world stage, UNESCO has been very active in promoting the use of open educational resources and in encouraging countries that are members of UNESCO to adopt open educational resource policies. And clearly my work at Commonwealth of Learning intersects with this work at UNESCO on a daily basis. Providing infrastructure and tools and human networks are also critical to the process. And by infrastructure, I mean things like libraries and digital repositories of easy to use materials and tools that allow you to shape those materials in ways that meet a personal need of a faculty member or of a group of students. My colleagues at eCampus Ontario built out a very nice open library that allows you to shape, find, customize, and create resources using a set of tools that we also supply with the library to make that repository of resources accessible and reusable through the malleable licenses that are created with them. This was created in 2020. At that point, they had saved students $9 million in Ontario. And one of the nice things about the platform is that it also integrates with a publishing platform if you're working with book-like resources, and that software is called Pressbooks, and allows you to publish books that are available in print-based formats, online formats, and other digital formats that can be used by tablets and phones in ways that make sense for the end users. Even before the COVID crisis, one of the most recent publications we built in 2020 was a vaccine practice for health professionals, Canadian edition of an open textbook that was very popular and was built by by nursing staff at the University of Toronto, Ryerson University, and York University, three of Canada's largest universities. And even the concern about books being flat has been enhanced through the use of an open source tool called H5P that we marketed using from flat to fabulous. That is building interactivity into open textbooks so that they became more usable to students and more fun to build and to reuse by faculty members, building interactive quizzes, timelines, and other kinds of tools that are part of the H5P tool set. Very popular way of working. My colleagues at eCampus Ontario have built this out into what they call H5P Studio, a repository of interactive elements and tools that faculty can use to add value to open textbooks that exist in a static format from multiple libraries available worldwide. Good work, community-based, active, tool-based environments. And it goes beyond software and print materials and resources. Arduino and the tools associated with programming small micro devices is another open source format that appeals in technology courses and engineering courses. It's not just about text and video and image resources. It's about other kinds of resources that are useful in the university environment. One of the most popular ways of getting access to open educational resources is to add value to existing courses, such as courses in the STEM disciplines through physics, chemistry, math, earth science, and biology simulations that are available for free. And these PhET sims from the University of Colorado Boulder are extremely popular with science teachers in our part of the planet. And I encourage you to take a look more closely at those sims that can add value to existing courses without actually having to go fully formed into an open textbook for a science course initially, by simply using some resources that add value around the side. And another great tool, especially for social science and humanities courses, is collaborative annotation of text and text-based material. And Hypothesis is one of those great tools that integrates with all of the learning management systems and adds value to courses in English literature, in sociology, and history in ways that allow students to collaborate and better understand and co-create knowledge through discussion and interactive collaborative activity. The fourth part of my talk, and I'll be very fast here, is that open innovation provides a collegial approach to exploring and sharing emergent practices. One of the things we found very successful is really to think about what are the pieces. It's really about the people, the networks, the tools you give them access to, and the creative ideas that they can harness together to build out better than the original resource they found. And this started actually in British Columbia when our colleagues ran some interactive resource sprints to build a British Columbia open geography textbook way back in 2012, 2013. And while they were doing it, they tweeted actively during the process, and people from our Ministry of the Environment saw what they were doing and say, hey, we've got these cool maps and data sets you might want to have access to add value to the open textbook you're building. That's the cool idea. These are nursing professionals from the 3 universities I mentioned previously that built the open vaccine textbook. It was about getting together with medical illustrators, with instructors and researchers and post-grad students, and working together to build something out that would be of benefit to their colleagues and peers. One of the biggest challenges is health information and health record data. While I was in British Columbia, at the British Columbia Institute of Technology, we found a piece of open source software that was used in hospitals in Africa that was open source for building health records. And my colleagues there decided to build case studies around it. So all of the students entering the nursing program could be given a course load of actual simulated patients to begin with that followed them through their courses as they learned new techniques and new protocols within the health profession. One of our history professors in Ontario decided that one of the ways he wanted to add value to open textbooks was to build visible course syllabi in ways that his students would have a better understanding before they took the course, how much of it was writing, lecture, tutorial, readings, video. And that notion of open course syllabi was seen by many professors as a way to market their courses more actively than they had ever done before. And finally, test bank sprints. How many times have you thought, I wish I could get together with my colleagues and build an item bank for a particular set of courses? This one is 2 days, 17 psychology faculty, 6 institutions, 850 questions. That's the kind of work that happens through community-based activity. And this is one of the poster children for linking research with open teaching practices. This is Maya Krizik at the University of British Columbia. She's a soil science professor. She decided to build all of her materials in open educational format, including videos for her students, and then built a network of colleagues across Canada to use a particular piece of software they built called SoilX to contribute data together to build a large database of open access data about Canadian soil science. Like, you can actually link this to research. One of the other strategies is to build an open education fellowship on your campuses. Actually give money and release time to faculty to build out research associated in their discipline with learning and teaching that they are doing in ways that contribute to the research globally. Many of our institutions in British Columbia are building out their own open education resource centers on campus. And they get even better when the president of the university contributes a message to say, this is the way we need to move forward. When you get that kind of support from the top down, then you're really connecting with the decision-making on your campus and access to resources for OER fellowships and such. And this is my final point. I'm one of the firm believers that practice drives policy. I know that a lot of my colleagues believe that policy works from the top down and practice follows there. I don't think it happens that way. I think good policy moves us forward, but practice is the driver in 2021. And we've invested a lot of time at Commonwealth of Learning in building policy resource guides for institutions. A colleague in Ontario wrote another wonderful report on why it's important for faculty to have policy supporting their use of open educational resources in the academy. And this is a little formula that my colleague Paul Stacey at OE Global put together with Sarah Hinchcliffe Pearson at Creative Commons. I've adapted it, and it really is a simple formula. Innovative shared designs for teaching and learning combined with social good results in high-value community resources and practices. And if we begin to think that way, we really start to move forward in a very collaborative, community-engaged academic environment. So I want to thank you for the time to outline my thoughts on how to make OER and OEP work in the academy.